You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. My name is Jay Bricker. Alongside me is my good friend and co-host, Matt Gannon. Matt, unfortunately, we have to talk about a loss as the Lightning season has come to a close. The Lightning lost to the Colorado Avalanche in Game 6, and ultimately they are lost in the finals. The Colorado Avalanche are the 2022 Stanley Cup champions. But aside, what are you doing today?
Well, obviously I could be better, but no shame in it. No reason to hang your head. We can, me personally, after the Game 6 loss, I celebrated like we won just because it was a lot easier. Of course, everyone's a little mopey this week, but again, there's no reason to hang your head. We should be. We are proud of this team and the amazing run, and it's still not over. We're going to hunt for blood next year, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Right, a lot of work to do in the offseason. And before we get into some of that offseason stuff, let's quickly talk about Game 6. I know you don't want to talk about it. It's tough. But
we have to?
I know, right? Do we have to do it? We got to bring it up quick. But the Lightning got that huge win in Game 5. It sent it back to Tampa. A lot of people thought, hey, they should be able to win pretty easily in Tampa and at least send it back for a Game 7. And it started off pretty good for the Lightning, as it had a couple of times in this series where early goal from Steven Stamkos in the first period, Lightning take a 1-0 lead. They look like the better team. But then ever from the second period on, Colorado just climbed back and took over that game, eventually took a 2-1 lead heading into the third, and then it was over. As soon as that puck dropped in the third period, you could just kind of tell the Lightning were, I don't know if it was they were tired, if Colorado was just completely outplaying them, or they just didn't have the energy. I don't know what it was, but Colorado dominated the third period. Lightning never stood a chance, and they ultimately win Game 6 2-1 and win the Stanley Cup. So the first thing I'll say is, Matt, you kind of hit this on the head already, but listen, this was by far the toughest Stanley Cup run the Lightning have ever had. They had to go through the gauntlet of teams, and they made it all the way back to the finals. I said this in my Final Strike tweet on the Bolt Report, but some fans and players even, they wait an entire lifetime to even have a chance at winning the Stanley Cup. The Lightning won 2 in a row and then made a third final. That is so hard to do. And as many people have said, you have to be proud of what this team did. They fought until the end. Even to make it to 3 finals in a row is something very special. And, it's disappointing. As always, it never gets any easier, no matter how many cups you win. But there's no reason to be upset with this team. They fought all the way through and through. And as Steven Stamkos said, who says we're done? They're ready to gear up and go for another run this upcoming season. So, but this team battled, and you can't be too upset for too long, because winning two back-to-back cups and making a third final is quite special.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a team that can match a record that has not been hit since the 80s, and that's making 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, that's just impressive. Not looking at it with the microscope. And then you see, some of the teams that they had to take down to get to this opportunity back to the Stanley Cup finals for a third year in a row. Yes, I agree. This was undoubtedly the hardest cup run we've had probably ever. I'll say out of all of them, I'd say, yeah, it's got to be the toughest. I mean, and in each series, we were the lesser seed, technically the underdogs, according to all the odds makers. But, if there's one word I can attribute to this team, it's just resiliency. I mean, you'll hear it from professional hockey minds, unlike myself. It's just like, this team does not quit. They won't go away. They're such a thorn. They're just a mosquito flying around your head just all the time. They will not go away. So again, congratulations to the Avalanche. I mean, they were the team that deserved it.
They earned it. Absolutely.
It's extremely hard to say, but I'm not going to sit here and be a sore loser or anything like that. They deserved it. They outplayed us. Unfortunately, injuries were a big issue, but when are they not? What Stanley Cup Finals is every player on every team healthy? That's not an excuse we can really go back on. Yeah, there's some calls I may have disagreed with, and way games ended I disagree with. At this point, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. There's actually nothing we can do about it. But again, the Avs, they were just the better team. Again, that game 6, it was hard to watch, especially, with coming out with such an imposing will in that first period, that early strike by Stamkos, and then it just kind of tailed off towards the end. Again, major credit to Colorado, because in that third period, you were saying you weren't sure if they were tired or they were just being severely outplayed. I think it was a little bit of a mix of both, but I'd say 75% it was just Colorado shutting it down. They got their go-ahead goal, and they said, this is it. That's all we need. This is our game. More credit to them. Unbelievable team, and, it's a team that, of course, you grow to hate a team that obviously your team is playing against, but it's a team that I can't really hate. It's a city I can't hate. I've got my biases, and unfortunately, Colorado, they're still, I'm celebrating this championship with them, unfortunately.
I tell you what, Nazem Kadri did get under my skin. I understand why a lot of teams don't like him, even though he did nothing wrong. He did get under my skin, so that was a little interesting to me. But quickly, before we get into the injuries too, I want to bring up, in the heat of the moment, I was extremely frustrated in that third period. I don't know about you, Matt, but like Stamkos after the game said he thought this team left it all on the ice, which I think if you look at the whole season, I think they did. But I thought that third period was bad. I mean, they had 4 shots on goal by the end of it, and for a large majority, it was 2 shots on goal. I mean, they just 4. The official stats was 4, and I don't know if they got 2 really late, but for the entire period, it was just 2 shots on goal. I mean, they had nothing. It felt like 2 minutes into that, you knew this game was over.
And one of those 2 shots in that third period was a center ice dump in on net. So
that's right, yeah.
And one of them did hit the post, which doesn't register as a shot. Colorado, they clamped it down. Again, the Bolts, they've played more hockey than anybody not named Corey Perry over the last 3 years. You can't say that they. I'm going to disagree with you, Jake. I mean, after playing so much hockey, so many games, and hard games in the playoffs. I mean, playoff games are just different than regular season games. They are twice as hard. They're twice as long, it seems like. You can't really fault them, especially with the laundry list of injuries that the team was dealing with. It kind of explains a lot, but not all of what went wrong, where the effort was, air quotes. It gives them a little bit of an excuse. I hate using the word excuse.
Well, and Colorado did sweep 4, so I think rest started to play a factor there. They swept that third round, so they had more rest coming into the finals. Which we saw that taking effect for the Lightning in the Rangers series, whereas the series went on, the Lightning looked like the better team. I think the same was true for the Avalanche in this series as well. But you're right. It was more of the heat of the moment thing where, it's a stinging loss and it was frustrating. But when you sit back and you look at it, you have some time to think about it. That obviously, as we said, it was an amazing run, and you can't be upset about it. Back-to-back Stanley Cups. It's moments we'll never forget. And hopefully, like Stamkos said, we'll be right back at it. So let's look at that. You were talking about the laundry list of injuries they had. I'm going to read these all off that JBB went over. So here are the injuries for the Lightning. Starting off with Braden Point, he had a torn quad. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, he had an MCL sprain. Nikita Kucherov had an MCL sprain. Anthony Cirelli, an AC joint sprain. He's going to need surgery, but all these guys should be healed up, as JBB mentioned at the end of his press conference. Ryan McDonough, and I love this description, he had a mangled finger. Brandon Hagel had a foot fracture. Nick Paul, a shoulder AC joint sprain and an MCL sprain, and Corey Perry had a shoulder AC joint sprain. So just injury after injury. Some of those surprised me. The one that shocks me the most, or the one that shocked me the most because he wasn't on there, was Eric Cernak, who took puck after puck and has no injury. I mean, I cannot believe he was not on the injury list at all.
I think they're still just counting what he has. Like, he's still probably been
he's got his own list to go off.
Yeah, it needs a separate post. It needs like five Twitter posts. You can't fit it all in one. So that's the most surprising one to me, is seeing Cernak omitted, because that guy, I would have had him at the top of the list for most injuries or something.
Yeah, and we knew some of these guys clearly had injuries. Anthony Cirelli we knew about, but they were able to keep skating. Braden Point I felt the worst for. He had the injury at the end of that Toronto series. He tried to come back, but you could tell he just wasn't 100%, and he just ran out of time mostly, and unfortunately wasn't able to get back. Kucherov I think we kind of knew about too, because I think it was during the finals where he took that one slap shot on that power play, and he pulled. You could tell he was hurt. Was it I think it was in the Colorado series. If I remember correctly.
I'm trying to remember which game it was, but yeah, he I forget what happened, because he
took a hit. It was like game 3, I think. Remember, he took a hit and people were upset about it. He went into the boards awkwardly, then tried to come out for the power play, and as soon as he tried to take a slap shot, he knew something wasn't right. So that one didn't surprise me. Then Belmar surprised me because he looked fine throughout that whole series. And how about Nick Paul? I mean, Nick Paul was arguably one of the better players on the Lightning this postseason, and he had 2 different injuries that he was fighting off. I don't know how these guys
upper
do
and
it.
Lower.
Right. It's unbelievable how these players do it, and they earn these wins and these Stanley Cups because they really do put their bodies on the line and go through unbelievable stuff to make it all the way.
Belmar had a meniscus injury?
An MCL sprain.
Okay.
Which a lot of guys did.
Yeah, he had that before the playoffs even started.
That's right.
Played through it all. And you know what? We're gonna get into it a little bit later, I believe. Yeah, he's a UFA, but he's been such an underrated part of this entire season. I mean, he didn't miss a single game, didn't miss a single shift. He's an older guy, but he's such a great personality. He's just a lovely person. If anybody has an opportunity to meet him, I mean, he's just a fantastic person and an even better hockey player. And he's just did not get a whole lot of love this year. And my God, such a warrior.
He's a solid 4th line center like Pat Maroon is as well.
Perfect.
He's actually under contract for this year, by the way. Next year, he is a UFA. Yes, he's still got one more year.
Oh, I'm happy.
So a little bit of good news. See,
yeah,
it's not all bad. But those are the injuries for the Lightning. So again, congratulations to the Colorado Avalanche. Congratulations to the Lightning. They fought all the way through. But the dynasty run isn't over quite yet, right? If the Chicago Blackhawks can win 3 in 5 years and they're called a dynasty, I think 3 and 4 years is still a dynasty, right?
It was 3 and 6 years, and that 2010 one doesn't really count to me anymore. So
the Lightning can still solidify themselves as a dynasty in this long run. But let's get into some of the things coming up in the offseason and how things could play out here. First things first, the draft is going to be coming up. That takes place on July 7th, I believe. And the Lightning actually do have a couple of picks. The draft is going to be in Montreal, and the Lightning, believe it or not, have a first-round pick this year, which is surprising because normally the Lightning trade away all of their first-round picks. They're not going to have one next year and the year after that, but they will have pick number 31 in the draft. And then they don't have a second or third, and they have a 4th, a 5th, 2 6ths, and 2 7ths in this year's draft. But Matt, we kind of talked about this before the show. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lightning end up trading out of the first round and trying to fill some spots in that second and third round.
No, I mean, I'm trying to piece together like what they will do, what they would do with that first rounder. I know a lot of people have been kind of wanting to. This is such a cash-strapped team that they have to make a lot of these hard moves, and I've seen reports today they're shopping McDonough. He's got a pretty hefty contract, and as much as I love the guy, he's such a solid rock on the defense. That contract does kind of weigh them down a little bit in terms
And
of
we'll get
signing
into that when we start talking about those UFAs. Yeah.
so I assume that's probably going to be a sweetener to get rid of either McDonough or Killorn possibly. I'm only speculating, and I just can't imagine we're going to keep that until draft day.
Well, fingers crossed that maybe they do, and they do take a first round. That would be nice, right? Something to look forward to and actually draft into the first round.
Yeah, right.
But that's the worst, though, when those late picks happen, and then you're sit through the draft that whole time, and then it gets to the, you're like, all right, here we go. Oh, we traded the pick. It's like 12 o'clock at night by that point, too. But nonetheless, the Lightning will have some activity coming up in the draft, and we'll dive deeper into that next week when it gets closer to actually being draft time. I think the most important thing we need to talk about right now, well, there were a couple of re-signings, as you can already start going in and re-signing your players. The Lightning have already gone to work in that, as they have signed defenseman Darren Radish to a two-year two-way contract, $1.525 million, $762,500,000 per year. So minor contract, doesn't make a huge effect on the cap, but nice to have Darren Radish back. He's been a prospect the Lightning have been looking at for a while. They also signed forward, forgive me if I mispronounce these names, Otto Sampi. He signed a 1-year contract. And then they also signed Ryan Jones to a 1-year AHL contract. So a couple of minor guys that have already been re-signed and ready to go for the Lightning.
So with that Darren Radish contract, it is kind of a smaller deal, but that also kind of does allude to what I was just sort of saying. You've got a little bit more assurance on defense. He is a little bit older. I want to say he's 25. Forgive me, but and that kind of, again, it alludes back to, I believe that McDonough contract will be moved at some point in the near future. Sorry to kind of go back to that before we really get into it, Jake, but that's just kind of my thoughts about it. Is like, oh, you got some more assurance for depth defensemen. That's
Radish is
just kind of my take on
26, by the way.
26, okay.
26, yes. But yeah, a minor contract, but he could play a role, like you said, depending on what happens here with re-signing and free agency. Let's talk about the free agents that we need to re-sign. So up this year that needing a new contract is Riley Nash, Andre Palat, Nick Paul, and Jan Ruda. Those are the 4 big ones. They have a couple other minor league guys, but all of the ones I just mentioned are all UFAs, so there are no RFAs to sign this year, at least on the main roster. And as you mentioned, Matt, the Lightning, there have been reports that the Lightning are shopping Ryan McDonough to see if they can move him somewhere. McDonough carries a $6.75 million cap hit, and he's under contract until his last year is 2025 to 2026. So he's got a couple more years, and moving his contract would definitely free up some cap space. But I know the biggest ones that people are looking for are Nick Paul and Andre Palat. Palat has been fantastic for the Lightning for multiple years. He's always somehow been able to stay underrated and came up huge in these playoffs so many times, scoring huge goals. Nick Paul was an absolute workhorse this year, and a lot of people are hoping he stays back. But it's hard to predict because both Paul and Palat, I think, deserve their big-time contracts, or at least a higher pay raise than what they've been currently getting paid. But we don't know factors such as, do these guys want to stay on competitive teams? Do they want to take a little bit of a hometown discount to try and make it work and make another run at that? So those are a lot of factors that we unfortunately will never know about until the contract numbers come out. But JBB did say they are trying to bring everybody back. They expect to stay a competitive team. Nick Paul also said he would like to stay with the Lightning. He was even wearing a Florida hat in his exit interview, so take that for what it's worth. But Matt, your thoughts on some of these UFAs that we have here?
So with Palat, unfortunately, I think he's as good as gone. As much as I love him, I think one thing that does get kind of overshadowed is that unrestricted free agency it's a privilege. Players earn it. I forget when they changed the rule, but it was like over the age of 32 or 33, you became a UFA. You have to play X amount of games or whatever. And Andre Palat, he absolutely deserves to test the market and cash out. He's older. I'm putting air quotes around that. He's 31. He really showed out these playoffs and again has somehow remained eternally underrated, probably up until this year. I think he's the Tampa Bay Lightning's version of Valerie Nichushkin, who really had a coming out party throughout the entire playoffs, and I think both these players really deserve to cash out. And unfortunately, it's probably not going to be with either of their current teams. So, as far as Nick Paul goes, what I'm kind of speculating is I had this theory before the playoffs started when I was like, oh my God, this guy's actually really good. After, just kind of thinking like Nick Paul, who's this guy? If we did not win the cup, I feel like he would want to come back and play on a competitive team. He's been with Ottawa essentially his whole career. He was a Dallas draft pick, but I believe he's only played with Ottawa and he wasn't part of the 2017 team or anything. So I think he really enjoyed getting a taste of playoff action, and I think he'd be willing to take I'm going to say a discount. He's obviously going to command quite the price tag, but the reason Ottawa traded him in the first place at the deadline is because they were already having contract disputes. What works in the Lightning's favor is the fact that we are in Florida and not in Canada, so we have a lot of tax benefits. What is really going to come into our favor is the fact that he can take a lesser price here versus pretty much any other team. Forgetting a few like Vegas, they've got some pretty good tax implications for going to their team as well. So I think Nick Paul will take a slight discount at a short term. I'm going to say like maybe 1 or 2 years just to kind of stay with this team and stay competitive and hunt for his first Stanley Cup. It's what I'm hoping for, but it also seems like the most logical solution. Like, if I were in his shoes, what would I do? Because again, if he was, I think it might honestly work in his favor, because if he can play as good as he did in his short stint with the Lightning all of next year and maybe the year after that with the Lightning, again, if he just takes a 1 or 2 year deal, he can really cash out. So that seems like the smart thing to me. It seems like it would benefit both parties. Again, I know those are kind of the big two, and I've been rambling, but who would not love to see Nick Paul back on the team? And again, unfortunately, I think Palat is as good as gone. And again, he's earned that right and deserves it.
If they do move Ryan McDonagh, so as of right now, the Lightning have about $5 million in cap space. It's a little less than that. It gets very complicated with cap nowadays with the whole LTIR situation. They still have Brent Seabrook on the books right now. And technically right now it says the Lightning have negative $1.9 million in cap space because he's technically not on LTIR as of right now, but he will once the season starts back up again. So the Lightning have about 4.9 and change in cap space. You can probably pretty easily get Ruda back under that cap. You could probably even get Nick Paul, maybe Riley Nash, but you can't fit Andre Palat into there. Paul was making $1.35 million. I expect him to get, he could easily probably on the open market get around $3 million probably.
I'd argue more.
You think?
If from us or from the highest bidder?
Yeah, I'm really bad at predicting what players are going to get when it comes to free agency because it's hard. There's a lot of factors that go into this kind of stuff. As you mentioned, the competitive discounts or hometown discounts, tax things. There's a whole bunch of things that play into it. But yeah, maybe $3 million or more. I think if we sign him, it's going to be around $3 million. If they get him for anything in the $2 million range, that's unbelievable. But we'll have to wait and see. Palat is the biggest one for me that I don't know how they're going to bring back. If they move McDonough, though, and again, that would give us, let's see, about what, 11 million in cap space, if I did my math right. I think you can bring everybody back if you move McDonough. A lot of people are wondering about Alex Killorn as well. He has been, how long has it been now since he has been a guy of potentially being traded? And being talked about
with all the Killorn rumors. I don't believe it until I see it. So I know
right.
I brought it up, but it's like,
People have been
we've
talking about
heard it
him
for
getting
so
traded for
long.
years, and he's still sticking around. And he's still a good player. He did not have a good postseason this year, especially in the finals. He never even scored a goal this postseason. So
No, and he did have kind of a meager amount of assists as well, but that wasn't his role in these playoffs. I mean, he was damn near a 30-goal guy. He had 26 goals in the regular season. I mean, he was it was one of his best years as a member of the Lightning, one of his best NHL years. He's only been with the Lightning. So I think Killorn stays, but it kind of all depends on what kind of deals are Paul and Palat looking at. So that one I'm not even going to try to speculate about.
Right. And we'll get more into this too as free agency starts to approach closer and after the draft. But basically, at the end of the day, the Lightning want to bring back everybody. I believe everybody wants to stay, and they can definitely make it happen. But we be prepared for if McDonough doesn't go, it's probably Palat that's going to leave us. And if we do bring everybody back, McDonough or maybe Killorn could be one. Somebody's leaving is basically what I'm trying to say. It's going to be real tough to do, but they want to bring everybody back, and most people want to stay.
I do also have one more point about Nick Paul, and the reason I did say I'm actually going to say 2 years is what his deal will most likely be. It maybe even 3 as well with the Lightning, is because about a week or two ago, the NHL, Gary Bettman and his merry band, they came out and they said that the salary cap will go up about X million in the 2025 season. I want to say. I'm sorry, I can't really get it exactly, but
I can tell you it went up 1.5 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see. I've got Cap Friendly up right now.
Significant jump.
So this year it's 82.5. Next year it's 83.5. Year after that 84. It goes up consistently 1 million. But then let's see. This is, what year is this? 2025 to 2026. It stays the same after that. So I don't know if they're just waiting to see, obviously, what revenues are. But as of right now, it's going up 1 million for the next 3 years, according to Cap Friendly.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of a rough estimation because that 2025
it might
season,
be.
Gary Bettman or Daly, I forget who did say it, but they said a significant increase in the cap. A lot of inside sources know the rough amount. It's not necessarily public knowledge or so, but that's why this offseason and free agency season, I guarantee we're going to see a lot of 2 to 3 year deals. So
right. Players taking short term and then cashing in after that.
Exactly. So that's
a great point.
That's something that gives me confidence about bringing Nick Paul back. But as far as Andre Palat, he's
getting older.
Back half of his career, he's going to want a long-term deal, and you can't hardly fault him for that at all.
Yeah, and unfortunately, all we can do is wait and see. Again, a lot of factors play into this kind of stuff. But from what we've seen from JBB, I expect him to pull off some wizardry and somehow get everybody back and sign a couple guys in free agency, because that's just what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So
one final UFA and somebody who I did want to talk about, aside from the free agent classes, is Jan Ruda. And he has been a topic of discussion in Bolts Nation for as long as he's really been with the team. He's seemed like the weakest link on defense, whatever you want to call him, even though John Cooper has put his full trust in him, putting him with his best defenseman. And I want to say that this year he actually thoroughly impressed me. There were times where I was like, man, why was he on this team at all? But in the playoffs, I honestly, like, he was not my scapegoat like he kind of used to be. I pointed fingers elsewhere because I really thought that he really has rounded his game. And I wanted to say this last podcast, and I couldn't really get it out. Then he scores the goal, so I was like, oh, now I'm just going to sound like I'm just riding with whoever's scoring goals. But I think playing with Victor Hedman, Jan Ruda has really, really rounded out his defensive game. He's not 1/10 of Victor Hedman, and not many players are at all, and that's no detriment to Jan Ruda. Right now I'm actually complimenting him. I think he's just been lights out for us in every role that we've really asked him to be. And yes, he still has room to work, but I really would hate to see him go. And I think we can get him re-signed for a couple of years at a rather reasonable cap hit. I think he's kind of a little bit of a hidden gem, and it was a small move made a couple of years ago. We traded Slater Cuckoo for him, and I was like, yeah, who is this guy? And he really has kind of come into his own in a little bit of an Eric Chernak-esque way. I don't think he'll ever reach like Chernak's ceiling, because Chernak is still reaching his own ceiling, and who knows what that'll be. But in the way that when he first started playing with the Lightning, you're kind of like, man, this guy, he's slow, doesn't really look confident, kind of can't make plays. And then as it goes on, he develops into just a tremendous right-handed defenseman. And, it was only a couple of years ago, I was like, yeah, Chernak, he's the weakest link on our defense. I don't know why he's on the team, just being overly critical. And then he shut me the hell up. And it's kind of very, very reminiscent of the same thing that Jan Ruda is doing to me right now. So if we can get him re-signed, I think that is an actually like crucial piece on our defense, because he really does pair well with Victor Hedman as well.
The big thing is he's right-handed. He's listed as both left and right-handed on Cap Friendly, but yeah, I don't know. But the reason him being right-handed though is huge, because letting him have a plethora of left-handed defensemen, so that could be big. I think the Lightning are going to lose one defenseman, whether that's Ruda or if it's Ryan McDonagh. I don't know. But if McDonagh goes and they re-sign guys like Palat and Paul, then I think Ruda's got to stay, because Cal Foot's going to be the one that steps up into that's kind of sixth spot. And if they end up letting Palat go and keeping McDonagh, which is a possibility, then you could maybe say, all right, let go of Ruda and let Cal Foot step up into that slot. I thought Foot was really good in the first round, but something didn't impress Cooper clearly, or he had an injury or something like that. And he didn't play the rest of the postseason. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But it's either going to be McDonagh or Ruda that I think go, and I think Cal Foot is going to truly have to fill in that top six role for the. Although Bogosian could step in there as well, depending on what his status is going to be.
My official prediction is going to be that Ryan McDonagh is gone, just so that they can make the free agent signings that they do want. Thank God I'm not the person that has to make these decisions, because it is difficult.
Right?
It hurts me to just hear about it. But one of our right-handed defensemen, I assume we're probably going to keep all the righties. So Bogo, Foot, Chernak, Ruda, but somebody is going to learn how to play left side, and that's going to be quite the learning curve. Playing left D as a righty it's kind of, some people are great at it, but there's typically a reason why they don't. So
yeah, and we'll have to wait and see. And again, we'll get into more in depth this as we start to learn more and seeing what everybody else is signing for. There are a lot of factors, but it's going to be a tough offseason, because 99% chance that we lose at least one player, whether it's McDonagh, Palat, or maybe even Paul, who knows. We're going to unfortunately lose some guys like you do every year. But JBB has been so good at signing. Heck, look at the Lightning lost Gord, Coleman, and Goodrow, and the Lightning somehow replaced all of those guys. I mean, not replaced, but everybody said the Lightning are done. They lost a huge third line, and they signed guys like Corey Perry, Belmar, and they didn't skip a beat. So we'll have to see who that's going to be for the Lightning this year. And that'll be fun to see what ends up happening here. Before we wrap up, though, Matt, I do want to talk about the coaching carousel that's been going on. The Lightning obviously always are one of the teams that everybody goes to pick from to try and get some of their assistant coaches because they have so much success. And unfortunately today, the Lightning lost Derek Lalonde, as he is now going to be the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. So first off, congratulations to Derek Lalonde on moving up and getting
Much
a head
deserved.
coaching position. Yes, much deserved for him. Although, Matt, I got to say, I'm bummed about this one because I really like Derek Lalonde a lot. I think everybody did. So it's a bummer from the Lightning's perspective to lose a guy like him. But we wish him nothing but the best over there in Detroit.
Just not against us.
Right, exactly. He can be fantastic, but we hope he loses every game against the Lightning.
Was he? I'm not sure if you know this off the top of your head, but was he a Stevie Y hire or was he a JBB?
He was
hire? I believe,
in 2018. He was hired by Eiserman.
Okay, and yeah, so everybody was kind of predicting Lalonde or Halpern, who's going to be poached by Stevie Y. You can't hardly blame him because I mean both of them are fantastic coaches, and I do think that that Stevie did pick the right one. I know Jeff Halpern's name has also been kind of floating around there. I know he's been linked.
He could also go to Detroit as well. He's been linked to Detroit.
I think he's probably going to be looking for a head coach position, and I think Winnipeg has kind of narrowed their search down. Yeah, they've narrowed their search down. I think Jeff Halpern would probably be a good fit for them. I mean, every assistant coach is looking for a head coaching job, and if the offer is there, I couldn't hardly blame him to take it. Another thing, too, is that Detroit's previous head coach, Jeff Blashill, a good friend of John Cooper as well, he's been linked to an assistant coaching position with the Lightning. I can't imagine he's going to get a head coaching job for quite a while, but I did hear
people have been joking it's like a coach trade between the Lightning and the Red Wings, which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah,
you know, kind of off topic, on topic, you know, you can trade coaches in the NHL.
Can you really? I actually had no idea.
Yep. Yeah, it hasn't happened in, I think, at all this millennium, but you can trade coaches.
Man, now I want a coach trade at the trade deadline.
Yeah, seriously.
That needs to happen. Please, somebody do it. That would be amazing. Now, I had no idea that you could even do that. Well, there you go. Learn something new every day, right? So that's interesting. But this is kind of like a coaching trade if you think about it. Between these two teams, if it happens. But the Lightning now do have at least one assistant coaching position to fill. Again, as you mentioned, Halpern has been linked to multiple jobs. So I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves. He wasn't my favorite assistant coach. Mostly because the power play struggled a lot, so people give him a hard time for that. But again, you can't fault any of this coaching staff for the Lightning because they made 3 Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, how can you complain about it, right?
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And losing in the Stanley Cup Finals is not broke. I don't care what you want to say. That's success. So,
but you know, we're also not here to be complete homers. You know, we want to call out the areas that need improvement as well. Yes. But and that was one area I thought the Lightning could be better. So we'll see if Halpern goes. We'll have to wait and see. But again, wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. But as of right now, there is one assistant coaching position open, and Blashill has been the one that has been linked to the Lightning. I wouldn't mind him because anybody that's worked with Cooper and Cooper likes, I have full faith in. And also, you know, I know his time in Detroit didn't go great. The one time he made the playoffs, they lost to the Lightning in the first round.
What did he ever have to work with, though?
Right, that's exactly what I was just going to say. He didn't have much to work with in Detroit. It was kind of unfortunate timing. So I think he is a good coach and could do really well with the Lightning, and eventually we'll get another head coaching job somewhere. But we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. But I think that's pretty much going to do it. I also want to thank everybody for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate everybody tuning in. If you are enjoying the podcast, wherever you may be listening to, give us that 5-star rating, give us that like, subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube, whatever it may be. It really helps us out and we really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to check out our shop at RBLR.com. You can go and use code BOLTS for 10% off your order. and check out. We got some awesome new merchandise that you guys can go get and check that shot off. It's RBLRsports.com is the website. So I apologize for that. So RBLRsports.com. Eureka's giving me, I'm fired in the background. RBLRsports.com. Use code BOLTS for 10% off your order. Go check it out. But Matt, anything else to add before we wrap up the show?
I have two things.
What do you got?
The Avalanche boat parade. The Avalanche Cup parade.
Matt, what did you just say?
I wanted to let them know. So this is my first time watching a non-Tampa Bay championship parade in 2 years. So I just wanted to say that it really shocked me seeing them on the street. I was like, what the hell is this? And I was like, oh, wait, we're just that cool. The other thing, too, you said it earlier, Nazem Kadri, he managed to get under your skin, and that's what he's there for. But did you see his shirt today?
I did not.
Jake, sit down, buckle up. Shirt said, "Too many men." And
for those who can't see, because you guys are listening to this, I'm just major face palming right now, and
none of us are allowed to be mad. I think the shirt's hilarious. Obviously, it hurts me, but it's just kind of a cheap shot at the 18 million over the cap shirts last year.
Big time cheap shot. Well, you know what? That's funny. And then the other thing that got me out that made me him get under my skin was when he was taking a shot at our ice too, and he was complaining about that. I was like, I can't stand this guy. And
then his comments, I don't think it was post game. I think it was just a media availability after game 4. They asked him about the too many men thing. He said they lost. Get over it. So I can go on and on and on about Kadri, but I'm not going to.
He did his job. He did what he was paid for, right?
What I wanted to end on is that Tampa Bay does championship parades better and T-shirts better. So, but nobody does T-shirts better than RBLRsports.com.
There you go. Perfect segue right there. But yes, boat parades over land parades any day of the week. I know it's been tough for me on Twitter. I've been like, I just don't want to see any of this stuff pop up. And as soon as it does, I'm like, scroll past it quick. Get out of it. I don't want to look at it. It's still salt in the wound. But hey, it's been a heck of a run, and the Lightning are going to be gearing up, ready to go for next year. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and make sure you give us a follow on Twitter as well at RBLR Sports so you don't miss out for our next podcast when we start to go more in depth on all of the off-season news. So thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time. Go Bolts!
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.